Blake, you start businesses with friends.
Yes.
Which everybody says don't do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you love doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me, if you're going to start a business with a friend, what do I need to do to make sure it works? What are the landmines I need to look out for?
Sure. One of the reasons I start businesses with friends, or I invite friends to work intimately within the businesses I already have or run, is that if you're a friend, you should know them pretty well by now.
Right.
Like, one of the biggest problems with partnerships or new hires is you just discover stuff that you never knew once you're working together, and if it doesn't work, it's really hard to untangle.
Right.
So I kind of feel like if you've known someone for several years and you've been around them in an environment where there was no kind of like business interaction, you've probably seen the good and the bad in them, and you kind of know what you're getting when you go into that partnership or that
Right.
hiring situation. Now, I will say the most important thing with starting business with friends is to be just absolutely clear about, roles, compensation, equity splits.
Create boundaries.
Yeah,
going
I mean,
in.
like you have to almost be more specific about every single possible thing in an employment agreement
wrong.
than you would with a regular hire.
Are you having lawyers draw?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, of course, I think you start with a conversation about whether you're hiring them or you're partners or whatever, and what makes sense, and you need to be able to look each other in the eye and say, do you feel good about this?
Right.
Like, is there anything that and especially in my case, because now I'm usually the person bringing the money and some of the extra credibility or whatever, and so I'm probably in a majority ownership position in most of these partnerships or businesses, and so it'd be very easy for me to kind of unwillingly use my power and leverage to get them to agree to something that maybe they don't feel so good about.
Right.
But if they don't feel good about it today, they might not say something, but a few years later they might. And so I'm always like, okay, do you feel good about this? Like, do you think this is fair? Like, is there anything that you're not saying? Like, we would just be really, really intentional. And then if the answer is yes, and you got everything out, then absolutely make sure that lawyers document it, that you go over the contracts, that it's like there's nothing that can possibly be misinterpreted.
How honest are you from the get-go that, and somebody in your position, this wouldn't be a 50-50 partnership? I'm bringing 80%. You're clearly bringing 20.
Yeah.
How do you have those difficult conversations?
Well, I think that for the most part, I am in a state, I think, where, making more money is not really my goal in life. Having more impact and having meaningful relationships and businesses are. I like to kind of start, with like what is like the most fair, most generous place I could be, and still feel like that this is reasonable. And then you go from there and you say, okay, but now we need capital. So if I'm going to invest the capital instead of go to a venture capitalist, what would a venture capitalist get? Right. And so then you say, instead of me set a number, let's go ask 3 other venture capitalists and say, if you were to invest in this business. So now it's not, and that's what recently I've done with something new that I'm working on, and I feel like we've entered into this relationship in a really healthy way.
That's really fantastic. That's great advice. You actually ask around and say, hey, if we aren't friends, if we weren't friends, let's ask other people what the percentages would actually be, and it gives an outside perspective. That's gold.
Yeah.
It's not just gold in deciding who gets to own what part of the company. It's gold in making all sorts of decisions.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's
wise.
really nice to go to outside resources, especially if you have people who are, doing that every day as professionals and getting a non-biased opinion.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Great advice.
Yeah, thanks.